Hello everyone, I'm Sanskriti and today we are going to talk about the Dracula part 2. And today basically I'm going to give its review. So last time I told you about the summary of Dracula. Now I will tell you what was it about. So basically Dracula is a late but classic example of English Gothic novel, combining elements of horror and romance. Stoker uses the 18th century literary form of the epistolary novel and as well-known horror motif, the vampire. Stoker tells the story through the diaries, notes, letters, and various newspaper clippings compiled by the main characters. The notes are in chronological order, which means the reader, like the main characters, only gradually discovers Dracula's true nature and the horror of his evil schemes. The largest proportion of notes comes from Nina, Seward, and Harker. In contrast, Van Helsing, the vampire expert, hardly ever voices his thoughts and opinions directly. His knowledge only comes to light through the notes of the other characters. Stoker mostly uses the same type of voice for various diaries, notes, and letters. In places, they are full of romantic sentiment, but in most parts, they record in factual terms and with almost scientific detachment the gruesome nature of what is happening. This approach contributes to the novel's feeling of authenticity. The popularity of the Gothic novel in Victorian England can be seen as a reaction against the pragmatism of the time. Stoker uses the age-old motif of the undead and sets it in a modern society in which science claims to have won over superstition. His approach contains an implicit criticism of Victorian rationalism. The heroes of the stories need to move beyond their scientific mindset to defeat evil. Despite the novel's supernatural theme, it is still a celebration of reason and technological progress. Van Helsing and his friends are successful because of their ability to analyze situations, plan well, and make use of technology. All setbacks in their hunt for the Count are due to failures in planning, technology, or analysis. Stoker novel presents an ambivalent picture of women. Mina Harker is a strong and analytical character who deals with modern technology and keeps a systematic mind. Yet at the same time, her male colleagues try to exclude her from their meetings, claiming that as a woman, she is too weak to bear the strain of their gruesome endeavor. Interestingly, this approach backfires, and in the end, it is Mina who uses scientific reasoning to uncover Dracula's plan. Equally ambivalent is the sexual aspect of vampirism. Stoker depicts a female vampire as extremely seductive. Not only Harker, but also Van Helsing come close to succumbing to their charms. Yet in the end, both flee and kill what excites and tempts them. In this sense, the story is an expression of the sexually repressive nature of Victorian England. As you see this historical background of the Dracula, Victorianism shaped 19th century Britain with Victoria on the throne from 1837 until her death in 1901. By the end of Reagan, the British Empire has turned into a modern industrial state. Yet at the same time, it held fast to its easy system and prompted colonialism. Social tension rose due to increasing poverty and its growing working class as one of the hand, and the snobism and extreme wealth of the industrialists and aristocracy on the other. Victorian society also held into a traditional, fervently religious morality that Queen Victoria and her husband Prince Albert inspired. While moral ideals and societal etiquette seemed movable, science and philosophy progressed in great space. In 1859, Charles Darwin published the seminal work, The Origin of Species. His findings put into question many basic assumptions, not least religious ones. The scientific method developed as a progress alternative to blind faiths. Education reforms opened up access to schools for the working class. The increase in literacy and the advent of mass printing also helped advance knowledge, and the side effect created a new market for popular fiction. As the story of the development is like, Dracula is Bram Stoker's best well-known work, one that he prepared meticulously over many years. He wrote the first draft in 1890 under the title The Undead. Shortly after finishing the first draft, he learned that the Wallachian Duke Vlad Tepes, Vlad the Impaler, 1431 to 1476, also known as the name of Dracula, son of dragon, who was notorious for his cruelty. Stoker borrowed the name for his novel without knowing anything further about the historical Vlad, but was much more scrupulous in other areas of his research. The geographical details of Jonathan Harker's travel to Transylvania are all correct, even though Stoker never set foot in Eastern Europe. Similarly, he checked all medical, technical, and even linguistic details thoroughly. When it came to the first figure of vampire, Stoker consulted several studies about this superstition. He based many aspects of his vampire on traditional beliefs, though he made up some of them himself, such as Dracula need to rest on consecrated home soil. Stoker took his inspiration not only from folklore but also from literary works that went before. 19th century Britain has already seen a number of successful vampire stories, including John Pollard's Der Vampire and Sheldon Le Fanner's Camilla. The stage has also few plays about vampires in the 1820s. Stoker himself considers a stage version of his novel. Dracula was first published 7 years after its first draft in June 1897 with a print of 3,000 copies. If you see the review of this, reaction to Stoker's novel were mixed. It was certainly no literary sensation, and it didn't provide much income for Stoker throughout his lifetime. It developed with time into a classic vampire story it is today. The cinema contributed significantly to its development. Even the stories in Stoker's was often quite liberally adapted. The first film adaptation was Friedrich William Maruna's Novecento in Symphonie des Brunes in 1922. Even though the producer initially didn't want to acknowledge the connection to Stoker's novel, in the earliest Hollywood adaptation from 1930, actor Bela Lugosi plays the role of the Count, creating the first lasting image of Dracula. He was later joined by Christopher Lee, who played the character first in 1958 and then again in other 7 films. The Vampires movie developed into so much of horror, also inspired parodies such as director Roman Polanski's The Fearless Vampire Killers, released originally as Dance of the Vampire in the UK in 1967. With more and more adaptation of Stoker's story led to the original almost being forgotten, director Francis Ford Coppola decided to return to the source material with his 1922 film, Bram Stoker's Dracula. Literally interest in Stoker's first novel started in the 1970s, since the book erotic subtext has come to the fore in many more contemporary versions of the vampire stories. For example, Annie's Rice series of novels, The Vampire Chronicle, the first of which turned into a 1994 film Interview with a Vampire, starring Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise, is full of homoerotic overtones. The sexual subtext is also present in the surge in vampire stories aimed at young adults. Consider, for example, the extremely popular teenage version of the vampire depicted in film producers Stephenie Meyer's Twilight series, which was turned into films with Robert Pattinson, cast as a fictional Edward Cullen, is the main role of the vampire. Stoker's Dracula had become an icon in popular culture, even though most contemporary vampires are no longer modeled after the image of the Count. So this was the review of this is the review I'm giving, which I had taken from the Get Extract. And yes, Next will be the story which I actually have heard a pocket audio novel, which was the Mafia Ka Pehla Pyar. I will give that review in my next video. So keep watching, keep subscribing, keep commenting, and yes, I will ask you a question if you have heard about the Dracula story. Who is the character Renfield in the book? Who is the character Renfield in the book? Give the right answers in your comment. And if you got the correct answer, in my next video, I will announce their names and appreciate them. So keep commenting,